We are here today with Peter Hyoguchi, and Peter is presently driving across the country, going theater to theater, forewalling basically his film, The Occult. Peter has been in the industry for a long time. We've known each other, I think, for maybe 20 plus years now. He is a director and a producer and a talented guy in so many different ways. Peter, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
So, you finished this film how long ago?
A year ago.
About a year ago, and you've been through quite a process with it. What is it like to get an independent film produced?
Well, it's challenging. It's expensive, and it's a lot of problem solving. Films are really about problem solving. Even if you have lots of money, you're problem solving constantly. So it's been 7 years making the film. Three of those years were actually shooting in Los Angeles, and a lot of things happened during that time. COVID happened. I ended up, fortunately, I had wrapped production right before COVID happened, and so post-production through COVID and then beyond. The movie was self-financed. I never really intended to make the whole movie myself. I couldn't really afford to make the film. But what I did was I shot a key scene from the script, which I also wrote. I co-wrote it, and with Robert Flowers, and I shot a scene, cut it together, presented it to investors, and thought I could get it financed that way. And they couldn't get any financing. The movie was attempted to be stolen from a few times, actually, by different people. Just crazy. The first time that happened was I showed the scene to some financiers. They were interested, and they had a budget of, I think it was like $5 million, and it was all exciting. Everyone's all excited, and then they said, "Well, we don't want you to direct it. We want to have our director direct it." And I said, "Well," they just wanted to buy the script from me, and I said, "Well, I really wrote the script to direct it, and I'm not interested in selling the script." And then about 6 months later, I found out that they had taken my script, given it to somebody to rewrite, and were in pre-production. They were going to shoot the movie with the same title. They had a different title. It was called the Tarot. And so then they were going to shoot it in New Orleans, so I had tracked down the producer, and I had threatened to sue them and throw an injunction on them on the production so that they wouldn't be able to film it. And then they ended up scrapping the production, and I was able to continue making the movie slowly but surely.
Wow.
And then
Wow.
it was stolen again by the movie Tarot, Sony's Tarot. They went onto IMDb, and I had my movie poster up there, and they just had their art department just take exactly, their marketing department just took the tagline, which was "Your fate is in the cards," and the whole concept of looking down at a table with a card with a skeleton in it and a hand, and the logo and the color and the everything, the font choice and the color and the concept, and then the tagline and the title of the movie. all of that. The story was their own story, but the advertising and the title Tarot was taken. So I actually had to. I couldn't sue them. I tried, but it was Sony, and I guess they threatened my lawyer. I'm not really sure exactly what happened, but he was like, "It's a great case. There's so much evidence that they stole from you." And then out of nowhere, he just stops returning my phone calls and says, "Find another attorney." So I ended up changing the movie, which actually worked out in such a great way. I mean, I think The Occult is a way better title than the Tarot, and I love the logo that we came up with, and the poster, and all of the tagline, everything, the marketing aspect of The Occult. I'm really happy with. So I'm glad Sony stole from me, but it's been a long road.
Well, I've heard this story repeatedly of projects being sold, and really, it's us, the independent guys, that really come up with the creative, and because these big studios, for the most part, especially today, they only know how to rewarm films that have done before, reboot them. They have a certain formula that they like to stick to because they know it, but they don't really know creativity. I had the same experience, it's quite a while ago now, with Dimension Films. I came up with a movie poster for my film called Delusion's Edge. And I went to American Film Market. I was working as a sales rep there, also selling shopping my film for financing. At that point in time, you could pre-sell a lot of films. Basically, for our audience, that means that you can get people excited. You have, at that time, I think there was 144 different countries that would come into your suite and make a bid on your film. They would sometimes give you upfront money. You had stars attached to make a film. And I had my one sheets, a nice color brochure, sure as you have, on both sides, with this girl, shocking pose on her face, big eyes, and a glove over her face. Well, about 2.5 months later, this brand new film comes out nobody's heard of before, called Scream. And guess what? It's my exact same image. Wide eyes, hand over the face. It's changed. They've been through different iterations at this point, but man, you and I both have stories of everybody that we know has had that happen to some degree or another, and it's no fun at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a silver lining to it, which is, I think if you're in the business long enough, you get stolen from, because the business is corrupt and it's filled with thieves, and liars and crooks and things like that. But if you're in it long enough, you will get stolen from if you're talented enough to be stolen from. So I think that my first experience in Hollywood, I had my script stolen from. It was just bizarre. The same script got stolen twice. First, I knew this guy who could get the script to Tales from the Crypt, and he took the cover sheet. Yeah, okay. He took the cover sheet of my spec script, and he wrote his name on it. And it was really.
Had you registered with the Writers Guild at that point?
Yes, it doesn't really matter. You can register. You could get your idea copywritten. I mean, people are going to steal, and they're going to get away with it unless you're rich and you have power. So registering with the Writers Guild is really a waste of time. It's, if they want to steal from you, they will. But yeah, that was just sort of small time thievery. And then sort of the bigger one was the same script pitched to the Outer Limits. I pitched to the Outer Limits. I gave them a script, and then a couple concepts, and then they ended up taking the script, and they didn't even change the names. It was the three main characters. They had kept the names, and then they went to production on it, and I ended up sort of accidentally stumbling across the episode as it aired, and could not believe there was my story about a futuristic prison, with our main character Marty, who's this poor guy, his wife Mona, and his sort of evil mentor, the warden Jack. All three names the same. They didn't even change the names, and the whole concept of punishment in the future, and the prison system in the future. But it was devastating at the time. But then over the years, I realized like I was talented enough to be stolen from, and if you don't have talent, no one's going to steal from you. So you just have to have what I came to was the industry moves very slowly, and there's thieves everywhere. And if you're talented, move quicker than Hollywood can before they can steal from you. And if you can, yeah, I mean it's just the sad truth. Although what's happening right now is what's exciting is I guess it's like some kind of ultimate justice or karma, but the entire industry is collapsing, and the 100-year legacy of Hollywood is over, and what's coming out of it is, or what's next is the next evolution of this medium is a really beautiful thing. I mean, it's democratized. It's not localized in Los Angeles anymore, and everything that the industry was, the whole reason why Hollywood could be the way that it was in terms of a very elite small group of people who run it, was that it's expensive. Film was made out of celluloid covered with the powdered silver, a precious metal,
silver nitrate.
So it's like $100 a minute, and then the equipment themselves, $100,000 cameras and so forth, editing systems that are very rare and very expensive, and then very few people who know how to use them, and so just the mechanics, the nuts and bolts of making a movie, and the knowledge is sort of like the screenwriting, the way that it's structured is very mathematical, and not a lot of people outside the business understand the 3-act structure and how almost like a haiku it is. It's just like sort of like secret knowledge that's passed down from mentor to protege, and now the information is really just everywhere, and the equipment is everywhere. You can make old feature film on your phone now and edit it and then distribute it. So the internet combined with hardware technology, software technology, and the internet, and the time since all of, not only do you have to have the technology and the hardware and the software, but it takes years to master something. So there's now years since high-speed internet and these new kinds of inexpensive cameras and editing that people are learning to. It takes time to master something. So we're getting to a point now where things are evolved into a place where all the gatekeeping, all the obstacles that were in the way of somebody who wanted to become a filmmaker, meaning they wanted to tell a story in the visual medium and then get it broadcast to the masses, that was something you really couldn't do without, being born into it or being extremely rich or super extremely lucky. And I don't even add talent to that, because there's plenty of talented people who are denied access to the business. And so all that stuff, though, all those obstacles are almost all gone now. And so it's really a beautiful, exciting time. I'm sort of of two minds about it. I'm sad that the institution of Hollywood is dead, in so many ways, and I'm also celebrating its death at the same time. So it's a bittersweet time.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into a film, and for me, there's 4 major hurdles that you have to get over. Finding a good script or developing a great script is the starting point. Chasing after financing, a hard part. There's only very few genres where you don't need a star attached. So that's the next hurdle for most filmmakers, is getting a star interested in that. And of course, probably the 2 biggest ones that comes on the end of that is distribution. and running up to that was finding the financing in the first place. So distribution, for those that don't know it here in the audience, it used to be locked up solid. I think it was back in '76, if I'm correct. There was an antitrust legislation that was passed. Basically, it broke up the monopolies of the studios owning cinemas. And
it was called the Paramount Consent Decrees in the 1940s, and it made the government basically forced the studios to sell all their theaters. So there was 5 major studios, and each of them had their own theater chains, and so they really had a monopoly over the business. And so it was the U.S. Versus the Paramount Film Company, and but when that decree was finalized, it applied to all the movie theaters. So all the movie theater chains. You can still see the remnants of it, because they had, during that time in the 30s, they had built these movie palaces. So like if you go to in Los Angeles, there's a gorgeous movie palace that is the Fox Theater, or it used to be the Fox Theater, and I think it still says Fox on it. But it used to be owned by Fox, and but now it's something else. I don't know who owns it, but and in Santa Barbara, there's a beautiful theater called the Arlington, and it's got this. It's also a movie palace. It's like 1,000 seats in there. I used to work there when I was a kid, and it has a spire and a bell tower, and that spire says, you can barely read it, Fox. But that's owned by Metropolitan Theater Corporation. But yeah, they split up the owners of the theaters, and so that industry of exhibition is there's a handful of theater chains. Most known, the biggest one is AMC, and it's AMC and Regal and Cinemark, and those are the top 3. And then there's like Marcus and some other smaller chains. Galaxy is a great chain that I've been working with in the Midwest called Imagine, and then there's just tons of mom and pop theaters around the country, single theater owned by usually families. A lot of families own theaters, even the chains. And in the Midwest, that's where most of the theater chains are being operated out of. Interesting community I've been learning about.
So once the antitrust, the monopoly was broken up, indies were able to use and distribute their films and exhibit through these cinemas across the U.S. But then another ploy came along, and the studios used their heavy-handedness in the especially in the multiplexes, the places that have 17, 18 screens or more. They came along and said, listen, we're not giving you the next Spider-Man next summer unless you put all of our films on your screens. And so that, again, independent filmmakers get locked out again. Dirty pool.
Yeah, I mean, that's how the studios exerted their power. They would I think it was called block booking, but it would be like the theater chains and individual theaters would have to agree to X amount of movies that they would put from the studios in their theaters, and it was conditional on big blockbuster movies that they want. Like, if you want the next Star Wars movie, you're going to have to take 12 of these other movies. And then there was they would be penalized if they put an independent movie into one of their theaters. So say you have a multiplex of 10 theaters, and theater number 9, you're going to put an independent film in, and the studio finds out that you're not putting their movie in there, they might penalize you, and in a number of different ways. and so um, the secondary market for theatrical was these grindhouse movies. They call them grindhouse theaters, and art house theaters, repertory theaters. So movie theaters that would play like foreign films and older movies and independent films. And those used to be fairly common. There'd be multiple repertory theaters in a city. And they, over the years, just kind of went away. And so the only thing that's left is these multiplexes, and independent cinema got kind of co-opted by companies like Miramax that would pick up an independent film or multiple independent films and foreign films and get them to play at the multiplexes. So then the masses started to see art house movies, foreign films, and some older films and independent films in the multiplexes, which also hurt the repertory theaters as well. So basically, in the late 90s, early 2000s, a lot of those repertory theaters went away and were never replaced. And so if you wanted your film to be in the theater, you'd have to be chosen by a very small group of very powerful people in Hollywood. And then most people aren't aware that it's more expensive to release and advertise a movie than it is to actually make a movie. Because even if you spend $5 on your little independent movie, you still have to pay upwards of $20 million to advertise a movie. That's what it used to cost. It's a lot cheaper now to advertise a movie and through internet advertising.
Yeah, we used to refer to this as P&A, which is prints and advertising.
Prints and advertising.
And, Prince was basically putting ads in black and white newspapers, and it was very expensive. I think it was $3,500 or up to $5,000 per can of film plus shipping. So if you've got 5,000 cinemas all over the U.S. and you're shipping out $5,000 prints, that's a lot of money. But that's changed today.
Well, it's cheaper, but there still is cost for prints. Prints also refers to printing movie posters. So each movie poster can cost up to $80. Like I printed mine. So the posters that go in the movie theaters are special plastic that can have light come through the back. Because a lot of these cases at movie theaters, they'll have like an illuminated case. So they put the poster in, and so the poster kind of glows like an LED monitor or something like that. And these posters are expensive. They're $80 each to print. So if you're in 2,000 screens, that's a whole lot of money. And then there's the print fee, which is back in the day, it was the 35 millimeter print was shipped in like I think 6 cans. Mm-hmm. And then they would ship these cans to the theater, and then the projectionist, a job that does no longer exist anymore. But there was a guy who was paid as the projectionist to run these movies at each theater, and he would take those 6 cans and he would put them on a flatbed editor in the projection booth, and painstakingly edit them all together into one gigantic platter, which was like a 6 feet in diameter horizontal dish that the film sat on, and then was woven into the 35 millimeter projector. And then that took a couple hours to do that. And then when the movie was done running, then you would have to disassemble the print, put them back in the cans, and ship them back again. And so there was a print fee, and it was $1,000 per movie. And so, again, if you're on 100 screens, that's $100,000. But in the last several years, 35 millimeter has been basically retired, except for a couple of theaters, specialty theaters in the world.
Do you remember the little dot, the little white or yellow dot that would appear at the upper right-hand corner of the picture?
Yeah, they called it a cigarette burn.
Yeah, and what did that signify?
To switch platters.
Yeah.
So, so these platters would a lot of times the whole movie wouldn't fit on one platter, so you'd have multiple platters. So this little cigarette burn would happen real quick. The audience probably wouldn't notice it, but the projectionist would switch, and it would go from one film reel to another film reel, and it was like a little switching of the reels, and that doesn't exist anymore. But now there's this format called DCP, which is a hard drive, and it's a very specific format meant for high quality cinema projectors, digital cinema projectors, and the DCP. They continue to charge $1,000 for the DCP, even though the DCP to load the DCP is just you're just pressing enter and
Wow.
return and
Of course.
but about a year ago, they stopped charging a print fee, and
Who's they?
so theaters, so which is a significant amount of money, because you have to make the DCP, which up until about 6 months ago cost $1,000, and
Another monopoly.
Yeah, and then it's just been every part of this industry has been democratized. I mean, the popular editing system now is DaVinci Resolve, and DaVinci's free. And so we edited the Occult on DaVinci, and then one day, not that long ago, sort of unceremoniously, DaVinci Resolve had a new feature with their update, and it was a pull-down menu called the DCP pull-down menu. You could export your movie into a DCP, and this was a very expensive process. Like I said, it would cost $1,000 to make a DCP. You know, I found one. It was like, oh, we only charge $500. Oh, really? Wow, and that's great. $500 to export your movie into a DCP. And now it's just a click, and then you wait an hour, and then you've got your DCP. So we were able to export our movie in DaVinci Resolve in the DCP, and it looks exactly like a Hollywood movie. I mean, watching it in a theater now, it's in surround sound, it's 4K, it's beautiful. It's indistinguishable from any other Hollywood movie. And we didn't. Our movie is a very low budget movie, but it looks fantastic. And so that was another hurdle that another like gatekeeping thing that has dissolved in just in the last year.
So,
and yeah.
So we've come to the point now. We've talked about the studios having a monopoly on all the cinemas, and then the studios, after that was over with, the studios came along and basically said, you're not going to get any films unless you put all these other films or put our blockbusters in the cinema. And now we're to a point where we have empty screen times. Hollywood is not cranking out the movies like they used to that would fill the screens. So cinemas are scrambling to put people in the cinema. They're making their money off the popcorn and the drinks and the sodas. And this created opportunity. How did you fill that opportunity, Peter?
Well, divine timing. I really I give credit to God in this situation. As last year I was finishing up my movie and started to before I do anything new, what I do is I contact people who've done it before and ask them for advice. Like if I decide I'm going to climb Mount Everest, I'm going to call as many people who climbed Mount Everest as possible to get advice. And so I have my movie, been working on it for 7 years. Now it's time to release the movie, to get it distributed. And I've had some experience with that. My last feature film was did the film festival route, and it's been a long time. I've been trying to make another feature, but this is my fourth feature. My last feature, my third feature film, I was hired to write and direct, and that was in 1999. And so 24 years ago was my last feature film. And I have not been able to get another feature film job or even get my own feature film done. And yet I've been trying for 24 years to do it. And fortunately, I've been able to get work as a director and as a visual effects supervisor on various television pilots and music videos and commercials and weddings and whatever, a lot of commercials and other people's films, doing visual effects for other people's films. And, but all the while wanting to direct my own feature film, another one. And just could not get it going. So that was the whole purpose to get this movie going, was so that I could do another feature film. And the industry has changed. The industry is never stable. It constantly changes. And there's every once in a while, there's like a major upheaval. And it usually has to do with technology. And sometimes it's technology and social. But most of the time it's technology driven. Like when sound came into movies, when talkies came into movies, there was huge upheaval. It affected the entire business. A lot of actors lost their jobs because they had very strange voices or they had accents or something like that. Camera people who could not do the same things that they wanted to do before. All of a sudden, there's a new class of people who are doing sound, both sound recording and sound mixing and all of that kind of stuff. So that was a big technological change. VHS, home video, cable, television itself was a major upheaval. And now the internet is a huge upheaval. Everyone can make movies and stream them on the internet. And so this is probably the most dramatic, absolutely, hands down, the most dramatic upheaval the industry has ever experienced. So I'm trying to make heads or tails of it. I'm calling everyone I know who's made a feature film recently and ask them, what they've done, what kind of deals they've made, how are they getting their movies out, what was the experience like, did they make any money from it? And I found that I talked to maybe a dozen filmmakers who had recently finished their low-budget, independent, self-financed features, and they all had the same story, which was they got picked up by some kind of aggregator/distributor, put onto Tubi and Pluto and Amazon, and some of them got onto Netflix and Apple TV and Disney Plus or Paramount Plus, and they're on these streaming platforms. None of them got into the theaters. No, that's not true. One of them went into the theaters during COVID, but he was in drive-in movie theaters only. Anyway, the story was the same, which is they weren't making any money. They weren't even breaking even. And so the business had shifted to only streaming. Nobody could get a theatrical distribution, and no one's making any money. Home video's not making any money. Home video doesn't even exist. Cable barely exists, and it's all just streaming, and it doesn't pay. So it's like a business in flux, a new technology, and a business model that's not making any money for the people who made the films. So this is unsustainable. It's not something very attractive. There's nothing very good about it. The fact that you are on Tubi, it's like, who cares?
Yeah,
you're on a website.
Well, there's a lot of creative accounting, and I don't want to get too deep into that. But what I mean by creative accounting is these distributors, and we've known this you and I've known this for 30 years plus. That distributors typically it all floats up to the top of the studio still, who still have a hand at controlling the cinemas. They seem to have a way of never being in the black. Somehow there's always an expense that they've taken off, that they're always in the red. So the filmmaker never gets to see his money. And I'm not exaggerating when I said there have been books written about this, because creative accounting that goes on in Hollywood, a nasty business, and guys like us that are artists that have a passion for directing and great storytelling, we're going to get trampled on. And that's often what happens. But you didn't say no. You went directly to the theaters, and you're in the process of doing that right now. You're on the road right now, just being a distributor yourself and putting your movies on the screen. Tell us about that.
Okay. Maybe I buried the lead. That's probably the most interesting thing about this the story. Is this concept of self-distribution in theaters, which was impossible to do. There was a small window where it was done in the 1970s. There was a movie called oh no, I forgot something Jack. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Talking about Billy Jack?
Billy Jack, yeah. So Billy Jack is probably the most successful four-walling. They call it four-walling. And if you were a filmmaker and you wanted to self-distribute your movie, it was possible. You could go to these sort of second-run movie theaters or art house movie theaters, and you could sort of force your movie into those theaters by paying an upfront fee. So maybe it was $500 per screening, and then if you made $600 per screening, then you could pocket $100. But that was the four-wall method. Has been around for a while, and it's not cheap, and you're gambling, and the theater always wins because they definitely, you're buying every seat basically, and so they're in a position where they're gonna win if nobody shows up, and if no one shows up, you take a bath. So it's expensive. It's not for everybody, and so. But Billy Jack did it very successfully and actually made the most money, as the most ticket sales in that, I think, 1971 or something like that year that it came out, and was self-distributed by the director. But it was expensive. And but yeah, so I'm not four-walling because I'm not spending money renting the theater. I'm making deals with theaters where I don't pay them anything, and they give me a theater and to show the movie. And
why is that possible today?
Well, there's a couple reasons. The main reason is that there's far less movies being made by Hollywood today. So even before COVID, the whole business model for Hollywood, that's been the same business model for many years now, just stopped working. So what you were saying before about like creative accounting, that's true when the Hollywood is making a ton of money and they're sort of hiding money. But what's happening now is there's no creative accounting going on right now. There isn't actually profit. There's no hiding of money. There's no money. And all of the studios are feeling extremely confused as to what to do, because eyeballs that only would go to them are now going to TikTok and YouTube, and so the competition is people like us making movies for free on their phones. I mean, it's 70% of all video watched on the internet is TikTok. And so the audience has now become accustomed to watching media on their phone anywhere, and it's free, and there's a ton of content out there, and so it's devalued the moving picture. And so people are less likely to go to the movies or pay for a movie, to download a movie. I mean, they've got their subscription models, but they're not really thinking, oh, I'm spending this amount of money to watch this. It's sort of like, it's just free to watch. There's so much free or almost free content out there. So they started to make less and less movies. And there's not a lot of articles, not a lot of awareness, but I had to actually go in and count how many movies were being released from Hollywood to the theaters, to do my own research. There wasn't any kind of actual data out there for it, but I discovered, I was kind of shocked, that there's been about 250 to 300 movies released into the theaters from Hollywood a year. So 300 movies a year, like clockwork, for the last 80 years. And then all of a sudden, the business model has just changed, and they weren't making as much money. So people are blaming it on the strikes and COVID, and that's not the reason. The reason is home video used to make $20 billion a year, and then that's gone completely now. So the cable also in similar kind of revenues, and all gone. So, and the eyeballs aren't there, the money's not there, and so the productions are not there. And so 300 movies a year. Now, last year in 2023, there was only 88 movies.
Wow.
88 movies, down from 300. And this year is going to be less, and next year is going to be less, and there's no coming back. There's not going to be Hollywood making 300 movies a year anymore. They just don't have the money. There's not enough eyeballs. There's not enough people willing to pay. There just isn't. And, most movies don't make money in the theater. So what happens is they're released. They spend millions and millions of dollars on making them and advertising them. They don't make money at the box office. But then on home video, all the movie video stores like Blockbuster would buy these movies, paying millions of dollars.
These are called
physical
ancillary markets.
Yeah, the physical media, and so physical media, home video, DVD, VHS, Blu-ray, used to make more than the box office. So that was really the business, was home video, and then cable too was making huge amounts of money. Cable doesn't exist anymore. Physical media doesn't make any money anymore. Doesn't even exist. And so the main revenues of Hollywood have vanished over the last few years. And so they have to make their money back in the theater. And so they're hedging their bets by making Barbie and movies that have some kind of Star Wars,
built-in
or
audiences.
Harry Potter. Yeah.
Built-in audiences.
Every once in a while, you're getting an original. Every once in a while, there'll be an original movie like Oppenheimer, but it's because you have these famous filmmakers who have the ability to kind of muscle their way to, they've got track records. So maybe you are not doing something like that you've heard of before, but it's Steven Spielberg's making it. So Steven Spielberg is a brand. And so, but, overall, less movies, and the theaters are really suffering. So I went to CinemaCon last year in March, and I guess it was this year. But CinemaCon happens in Vegas every year. It's a convention for movie theater owners, exhibitors, and the studios. They come together every year, and the studios show previews and clips from the new movies, and they're two parts of the same whole. They're two industries that work together, and I was curious to see how the theaters were responding to this, because only the theater owners really are very aware that there's less movies, and because that's what they provide. That's if you sell popcorn and there's like some kind of reason for there's some kind of corn shortage or something like that, or like Iowa burns up or something, and it's like you're gonna feel the burn. You're not going to be able to sell as much popcorn because there's literally less popcorn. So, and in the case of the theaters, they're just less movies. So they're trying to figure out how to stay in business with less movies, significantly less movies.
Well, and the box office nut, which is the ticket prices, the collective total of the ticket prices, doesn't go to the cinema at all. It goes back to the theater. I think they get something like 10%. So the cinemas are wholly dependent on popcorn, which is cheap to produce, soda, which is cheap to produce, and that's where they make their money. And it's kind of evolved now. There's a lot of cinemas. We've got Alamo Drafthouse here in Austin. The AMC theaters are starting to do this. They're starting to evolve, serving beer and wine and some of them whiskey and dinners, really good dinners, and because that's where they make the money. So, we're also up against the equation of, $500 today buys you a 75-inch television system and with good sound. I mean, you're getting the equivalent of the cinema. But if you're like me that grew up in a small town, boy, on the weekends or even weeknights, there's not much to do. So you want to get out. And the cinema's a great place to escape to for a couple of hours.
No, it's a wonderful tradition to go to the movies. People talk about how the movie theaters are going to go away, and I don't think so. I don't think so. And a lot of people say, well, people have these great home systems now. It's like, so what? It's like you've got a great stereo at home. Why were you going to go see the Beatles? They sound great at home. Yeah. Why would you go see the Beatles in a concert? They probably sound not as good as is your home stereo. Right. So, why would you do that? And so the reason is it's a group experience. And it's something that's very memorable. I see a lot of movies at home, and a lot of times I'll forget that I see them. I can't tell you more details. I saw it. I saw it at home. How did I see it? I don't know. I can't even remember what streaming service, or was it VHS or whatever. Seeing movies at home, it's a nice way of passing the time, but it's not an event, and it's hard to remember things you do at home in your sort of private alone space time, But when you go to a movie, often you'll go with friends or family, and the process of getting in your car, deciding what time it's going to start, it was going to start with or without you, So you are going to it. The very nature of it starting at a specific time, and it's not going to pause while you go to the bathroom. So it's just by the nature of that, you are succumbing to it. You are bowing down to it. You're submitting to something that has more power than you do. And so it has value because you have to get there. Your whole life has to rearrange for it. And so driving there, getting there on time, buying your ticket, selecting your snack of choice, figuring out which seat you want to sit in, waiting for the movie to start, the anticipation, the conversations. Sometimes you meet people in line or whatever, and because of that ritual, I remember that movie. Even bad movies, I'll remember that I saw in the theater because that whole ritual, that whole process is memorable. And then when the movie starts, there's something that happens when you're in a room with a bunch of people who are experiencing the same kind of waking dream. And you're all experiencing sort of psychic ride. And so there's fun, there's fear, there's joy, there's sadness. There's all of this laughter, a group of 100 people laughing at the same time. There's something very magical about it. And it's ethereal, it's intangible, but it's valuable. Mm. And it changes your experience of that movie. Yes, there's probably better sound, and the picture is bigger, and it's going to be much more enjoyable in terms of its sound and visual quality. It's going to be superior, but that's not why you go to the movies. You go to the movies to experience something with an audience.
I'm glad you brought that up because I watched a whole lot of movies being projected in 35 millimeter, and I was constantly getting up, trying to chase down somebody with a walkie-talkie or a manager to adjust the film gate because the film was jittery. Ralph Winter that was the executive producer on a lot of the Star Wars films, he came along with something called the Theater Alignment Program that basically was teaching cinemas how to run your projectors properly so that when the next the next Star Trek movie comes in there, it's not going to have the jittery problem or slightly out of focus. And I'm glad those days are over. But Peter, as part of a final segment, we're just going to preview here a little bit. I want to get into the tremendous effect this has had from a faith perspective, your film, The Occult. But before we talk about that, tell us just a little bit more about how these, whether they're mom and pops or whether the chain cinemas that you're going to individually, any special stories there? How have they received you? And more importantly, do you believe that this is going to get paying audiences to come back and see your film?
Yes, I mean, absolutely. I'm doing this so that I can release the movie for paying audiences. I think it's hard to wrap your mind around something that's new, but I'm doing something no one's ever done before, and it's an experiment, so it hasn't been proven yet, but I believe that I will be proving it in the near future, and that is working with theater chains and independent mom and pop theaters to road show a new movie, meaning testing the movie with audiences to find out what marketing techniques are the best for the film, if the film's even working with an audience, do people like the movie, and if the people like the movie, what kind of people are those people, and what's the best way to advertise to them, and what's the best way of getting people in seats. And then the most important thing is, for any success of any movie, is word of mouth. People, one of the reasons for word of mouth is there's something about film and television that provides a sort of social glue, and it's not just entertainment. There's entertainment is good, but there's something more than entertainment, which is a shared memory, and it's a social glue. In that, here's an example: you can pretty much go anywhere in America or the world, for that matter, walk up to a stranger and just start a conversation and say, that was really sad when E.T. had to go home and Elliot was, had to say goodbye to his alien friend, You remember how sad that was?
It was.
And
I cried.
And everybody will go, yes, I cried too. And that's and everyone goes, yeah, E.T. and Elliot are my friends. And everyone has this feeling it's an illusion, it's not real, but it's like a dream. And so it's like this shared dream. And and what I mean by social glue is it connects our psyches. We have a collective memory when a movie permeates the culture, and so like it or don't like it, but it's something that you share with a lot of people, and so there's a desire to connect with people. That's why people go to the movies to begin with, into the theater. They want to, even at home watching a movie, it's like, oh, my friend saw this. I want to have that same memory that's going to connect us, and we can talk about it. And so, by testing this movie with audiences around the country, and the response has been tremendous. People love the movie, and they want to see it again, and they want to take their friends to see it again. And they're frustrated that it's not available to download or stream or buy, and that they can't just watch it. It's only one-time screening, once in every state, and you have to be there to experience it. And so, but eventually it will be seen everywhere. And the people who are seeing it, which is about 120 to 250 people per screening so far. And that's a lot of people to have experienced this in the theater with surround sound in 4K, with a packed audience, shoulder to shoulder. and a very memorable experience with the director and the stars up on, doing a Q&A. We do a Zoom with the, like the Hollywood squares are up on the screen afterwards, and people stay hour, 2 hours after the movie to ask questions, to talk about it. They want autographs, and it's a thing. It's an event, and it's memorable. And I'm implanting this memory into hundreds of people now, and so when it does come out in theaters for full ticket prices, we're going to have this group, and I have all their emails, and I can send out a newsletter and everything. I'm staying in touch with them, and I'm building this kind of like alpha viewers,
so
an alpha audience.
What did you do to put people in the seats? What kind of advertising did you do?
Well, the trailer gets people going, and there's a few ways of doing that. So the theater that I've partnered with, each theater I partner with, a couple weeks before the movie plays, the trailer will be playing in front of movies. Like right now, there are 3 movie theaters that I'm queued up to go to show the movie in. So in a couple weeks, I'll be in Wisconsin. I'm in Wisconsin now, but we're doing the next screenings in Wisconsin, and the theater is called the Town Cinema, and they've got Twisters is playing, and Wasteland, Borderlands comes out today, and Deadpool and Wolverine. So if the audiences go to that theater and watch that movie, they're going to see a trailer for The Occult. And the movie poster is up there. Also, it's on the marquee. And the same thing is going on in Ohio and in Indiana right now. And so they're getting prepped. I'm also spending $8 a day on TikTok on a very targeted area of a very targeted audience. So as people are scrolling through their TikTok, the Occult trailer will come up, and then it has a call to action that says it's a free movie. I'm not charging anything, so it's a free movie. They can sign up and register, and I get their email address, and then they get their seats for free. And so I'm developing an audience. I'm testing the audience, and right now I'm spending money, not making money. But it's I'm spending money on marketing, and instead of having $1 million to spend right now, I'm spending hundreds of dollars. But I'm dedicating my life touring the country doing this.
And besides social media, anything outside of the cinema that you're doing?
Yeah, I'm going to malls and shopping wherever, walking the streets and giving out what looks like a tarot card, and on the other side of it, it says The Occult. Coming to a theater near you. And then there's a little QR code. And the QR code gets you to the occultmovie.com, where you can watch the trailer, find out more about the movie, watch behind-the-scenes content, and then you can also register for a seat for the theater that's close to you. So this is a big reason why people are coming to this flyer is very effective. And in the first screening I did, this is all I did. And I got 250 people to show up. So there's something intriguing about this card. It doesn't look like a flyer. It looks like a tarot card. So people think at first, it's kind of almost like a prank. People think it's like, a single tarot card placed, on a Starbucks table, or even on their welcome mat, in front of their house. It's like, what's this about? Is this my future? And they're like, well, what is this? And so the movie itself is kind of a mystery and a riddle, and it's intriguing and a little scary and supernatural. And so the card itself kind of is the first part of watching the first experience of the movie. This is actually part of the film in a way. It takes an active viewer to sort of decipher what this is all about.
And this is having a special effect on a demographic of the audience that maybe I wouldn't have expected, but it's a message of faith. And tell us about that aspect of it a little bit.
Well, the movie's based a lot on my experiences, and I know people, and I have known people who grew up in Luciferian or Satanic occult families, and the movie discusses a lot about that, and the process of writing the movie and my own life, kind of putting my own life into the film, was about a journey of a guy who's lost his faith and who comes back to Christ and the belief in God and the devil and the Bible, is a lot from my life that I put into the film, and so the film is not a Christian movie, but the film is has Christian themes in it and has a Christian message, without being really for Christians. The movie does not appeal to Christians, actually. I've had Christians walk out of this movie offended. And no, it's really for people who are interested in the occult, and it warns against following the occult practices, that it's dangerous. And so it's a warning for non-Christians.
And Satanism seems like it's everywhere today in our football stadiums and our music shows, music videos. It's everywhere now, and it seems like that envelope is getting pushed very heavily now, and people don't realize the danger. They don't realize the doors that they're opening, chasing after those things.
Yeah, it's not to be taken lightly. There's a real push nowadays for Satanism to go mainstream, and and people think it's kind of fun, and like it's just a trend or something like that. And it's not the trend. It's actually ancient. Nothing's changed about the devil. The devil is real. There's the same techniques have been used since the beginning of time. And so, yeah, I mean, this is an exploration of those themes, and it's interesting. I mean, I'm getting hundreds of people to show up who are actual Satanists. There's real Satanists and people who grew up in Satanism who show up to these screenings. And it's pretty heavy.
At some point, I'm going to have to query all my friends, because I'm just kind of amazed at hearing some of your testimony now. And I have other close friends that have very similar backgrounds, that having encounters with the occult. When I was in high school, as a book report, I went out and bought a Parker Brothers Ouija board from a toy store called Toys R Us. It's no longer in existence. But that thing predicted things very specifically that were going to happen the next day. And as my life went on through the next few years, at one point I went off to college. I found myself sleeping in the apartment of an ex-high priestess from England who had some sort of demon in her house that was manifesting to friends and other people, and she thought maybe it was her parapsychologist friend that had died from college, but no. And it just kept going on for years and years. And as a young Christian, I think the first thing Satan does is he tries to flip you upside down, get you turned around, misdirect you. So if you're messing around with this stuff, you're going to find out that it's always going to backfire on you. You're messing around with the occult, it's always going to backfire on you. It's like a magician. Okay, don't look at what's going on with this hand, look at the other hand, and that's where the trick is. Peter, we're going to put your film here, we're going to put the trailer here at the end of this segment, or at the end of this interview. I don't know if you want to mention this or not, but you have a kind of a cameo appearance of a very famous director in there, a mutual friend of ours. Do you want to talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, I mean, it's not really a cameo. I mean, he's a main character. He's the villain in the film.
Well, sorry, you're right.
Yeah. Tom Holland, the writer and director of Fright Night and Child's Play, plays the villain, the cult leader, Uncle Walter, in this movie. And he's a fantastic actor. Not a lot of people know that he started his career as an actor in Hollywood and was under contract at Universal, was in a lot of movies and TV shows. And but he was also a writer and switched careers in the 80s, where he wrote Psycho 2, which is a fantastic sequel to Hitchcock's Psycho, and then became a very well-known, successful horror director and writer. So he plays this great charismatic cult leader, which is what a director is anyway. And the film The Occult is very similar in a lot of ways to Chinatown, because it's about a conspiracy and a mystery, and there's a lot of dark undercurrents of the film, and there's this sort of powerful villain who's pulling the strings of this mystery, and the film Chinatown, the villain is played by John Huston, who's a very legendary film director, and Roman Polanski casted him, I thought, very smartly. That there's a sort of like a very successful film directors, especially older ones, they have a kind of gravitas. There's a certain kind of cachet that comes with that, and I just thought that it would be appropriate to cast Tom. And when I asked him to be in the movie, he was very enthusiastic, and he acted in the movie for free. We even shot a lot of his scenes in his house, and he's just been very grateful, very gracious, and I'm very grateful, for his involvement. And he's also part on this tour with me. So every 2 weeks I screen the movie, I do a Q&A, and he shows up for the Q&A via Zoom. So he's still in Studio City, but from his comfort of his own home, he's able to be in Naples, Florida, and Detroit, Michigan, and Minneapolis, Minnesota, and now in where are we now? We're in Wisconsin. So, and he's going to continue going, doing this with me. So I'm very grateful.
Nice. Yeah, it's I always love those kind of little behind the scene things that you can be watching a movie sometimes and then hear about, oh, that was such and such. You just didn't realize it at the time. So I'm glad you enlightened us a little bit about that. So, Peter?
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're going to take a look at your trailer right now. Where can people go to watch the film?
Well, they can go to theoccultmovie.com and they can look and see where the tour is headed next. I'm in the Midwest now. I'll be here for the next month or so, and then I'll be heading to the East Coast. And then as things get I think in November, I'll start to move west, and I'll be doing some screenings in Texas. I will probably do one screening in Texas. I'm basically doing one screening per state, and I'll be moving out west, and I'll be in California towards the end of the tour, which is, I don't know, maybe it might take me about 6 months to do this. I'm not really sure. I'm just sort of playing it by ear, but that's the plan. I'll probably end the tour in Los Angeles. The last screening will be at the Chinese theater, most likely. And
beautiful.
And then
beautiful. I love the man's. Well, it's not the man's Chinese. That's what I call it when I was living.
The TCL theater.
Yeah, I used to live 3 blocks away from there. Can you believe that? Nice. Just the best cinema in the world.
It's really great. Yeah. So I've got friends who are part of that theater, and I've been offered another free screening at the Chinese theater. So
Wow.
I'm really looking forward to that. And then hopefully that is the sort of kicking off of the actual wide release of the movie. Because the goal is to put this into 2,000 to 4,000 screens without a distributor. So doing it completely myself with the with the relationships with the theaters and the theater chains that I'm making during this tour. And I've already gotten two theater chains that are ready to go, release the movie whenever I want. But part of this tour is also raising money for the P&A costs. And I think it's going to cost about $1 million to release the movie, and using the techniques that I'm doing right now, but just, expanding it to reach more people and more screens at the same time.
Well, Peter, thank you for joining us today. We wish you the best of luck out there on the road. Stay safe and keep making a difference. Keep fighting the fight for us filmmakers and for God.
Amen. Thanks. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it, Jeff.
You should stop by my shop at some point and get a tarot read.
Hello.
Are you a mutt?
I feel like we've had this conversation before.
No, I don't think so. Yeah. Shuffle the deck and I'll get you that popsicle.
Oh. Yeah, I don't really want a tarot card read.
What'd you come here for then?
'Cause you invited me?
I'm watching you. A woman in a green dress is going to offer you your dream job.
That's really specific. How does this card tell you that a woman in a green dress is gonna offer me my dream job?
Better be careful.
What?
I think I saw Elmer Fudd running around here earlier. It's rabbit season, you know.
Have you met Uncle Walter?
Lily, my granddaughter.
He took my brain, he turned it inside out and back outside in.
She looks like an angel, but she has a little devil inside.
Wanna draw with me?
Is that your church?
Yeah.
Thank you all for coming to this service of the light.
What does it say?
It says that we're soulmates and I'm going to have your baby.
They eat babies. You need to have Jesus in your heart.
Have you seen anyone other than me?
Coming soon to a theater near you.